Rostamovich. I'm a design and marketing assistant at AileenDesigns, where I handle things such as social media and email campaigns, as well as a few design projects here and there. Who are you? Who you are is defined by a bunch of things. The way you talk, the way you interact with people, your expressions, sense of style, sense of humor, values, goals, bunch of things. A brand is a lot like a person because it too has an identity. It has a distinct way of talking to people, a visual identity, a mission, and core values. It can't walk on two legs, but a brand has vitality, life. And that's what brings us here today. How are you supposed to how are you supposed how are you supposed to avoid having a brand cramp if you're not sure what that brand is? Talk about an identity crisis. Today I'm chatting with Aileen Casey, owner and founder of AileenDesigns, a marketing agency based out of Glastonbury, Connecticut. And she knows a lot about branding. And so we're going to talk about that with her. Hello, Aileen. How are you doing?
Hello,
Yeah,
Amina. How are you?
I'm doing pretty swell.
Excellent. Excellent.
All right. So, how did AileenDesigns happen? What was there like a catalyst that led you to, pack up your things, start your own business? Can you talk a little bit about how Aileen
Sure.
Designs came to be?
So, I went to college and I have my degree in studio arts with an emphasis on graphic design. And as you and I have talked, I learned how to do graphic design before the Apple computer was created. So I learned how to do everything by hand. And back then, the way you design things is you had to know code and other types of things and how to use technology. So I learned how to do that. I moved from working for advertising agencies in New York as a designer to a production manager, where I actually worked with agencies to produce their work. And then from there, I moved to marketing. And since I was in Manhattan, I worked in financial services for Chase, for Citibank, all the big banks. And then fast forward to, the early 2000s, moved to Connecticut, started working for media companies. And as everybody knows, the media companies, in the past couple of years have been purchased by other entities and that kind of junk. And I lost my job. So within like a 5-year period, I was laid off twice. And after the second layoff, I was like, I can do my own thing.
Yes, you can.
Because I had a design background and I was doing, side work as a designer and illustrator. And then, my collective experience in marketing, I learned a lot. I had some really good jobs and, I did my own thing 6 years ago and I haven't looked back. So
Nice.
yep.
Cool. So good to know that if the internet ever gets blasted out of existence or we have an extended power outage, you can still do design stuff for people.
Correct. Exactly. Exactly.
Cool. So was there like a big culture shock when you moved from like corporate America to smaller
Yes.
smaller
100%.
companies?
And in fact, if you look at the BrandKramp blog, and full disclosure, this is a journey that you and I are taking together that I don't know the first thing on how to do it. So I'm sharing everything. One of the big things that I couldn't shake off was what I'm calling the corporate stink. So when I started AileenDesigns, I ran it much like my career ran. So the process, the procedures, the structure, the accountability, all that kind of stuff. And my personality was completely gone. So BrandKramp is really about seeing what I can do as Aileen and bringing personality into it, So that's like my first blog is on that.
Yeah.
So this is me. This is me.
Nice.
F-bombs and all.
We love it. We love it. All right. So, you've worked with a few different brands, all across all different industries. How do you approach creating a brand for a company?
You do a lot of research, and it begins with the owner or the person responsible for the branding. You really need to get a sense of their personality because obviously they're in charge. They're going to influence things based on their personality. So I get a sense for the team that I'm going to be working with, what they want to do. I ask questions like, where do you see the brand going? How do you want people to feel when they interact with your brand? And then I go out and do a ton of research, and I look to see who is in the market, in their current playing field, in the playing field they want to grow to be in, and all those types of things. And then I look for I do visual research. I look at logos, I look at colors, I look at trends, all that kind of stuff. And ultimately, all the information comes together in a way that serves that one particular client. Everything I do is unique. It's not like if you're a financial services agency that you all need to look the same. You don't. Even though Chase Manhattan Bank does something one way, it doesn't mean that you need to do it the same way. So, that's sort of how it comes together. And it's really about the relationship that I build with my clients and the relationship the clients want to build with their customers. So that's really what it's all about.
Do you find that with branding projects, as the company grows, the branding grows too, right? How do you kind of adjust that?
Yep.
Sorry.
So you don't even have to finish that, and I will tell you. Branding
Cool.
is 100% based on the leadership.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with the brand standards, with the brand guide, with all the work that I do. It has nothing to do with that, and 100% to do with the leadership. So
Mm-hmm.
what happens is generally leadership will come in and say, we need a branding exercise done. You do the branding exercise. You get new leadership in and they're like, we need to open the door and get some fresh air in here. We need to upgrade our branding. So they bring an agency in and they do their branding to match their energy and match, their perspective on what they need to do. So it's really all about leadership. And, very basically, people work for people. Your brand is how you relate to those people and how you relate to customers. So it's really about the people in charge and not about the work that I do or like the design aspect,
Mm-hmm.
So
was it weird to kind of I guess this kind of expands upon the question I asked you before about the culture shock thing, but how did it feel being kind of behind the wheel with AileenDesigns and, shifting from, doing all this stuff for other people to ultimately, doing it for yourself?
So,
What was that like?
that's a really good question, Amina, because that has been my focus for 2024 because I got to figure that out. And the biggest advice I can give someone who's embarking on their own career from corporate America is don't look for your boss. Every one of my clients I considered or put at the level of being a boss. So I've been leading myself for the past 6 years with, how am I perceived? How am I doing? You have to consider those things, but they're more like a boss to me than anything, which means that sometimes bosses stifle who you are and don't allow you to be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of my struggle. And the clients that I have since I've been on my own have been wonderful and they're great people and some have become friends. And when we become friends, they're like, wow, you're kind of uptight. Like when you were,
No way.
and it takes a little bit, but it's hard. And BrandKramp is all about me changing that and really bringing more of myself to the table and more joy and more craziness. So there you go.
Awesome. Cool. So what do you hope to achieve with BrandKramp?
A couple things. The main exercise is to get out of my comfort zone, to do something I've never done before and to learn while I'm doing it. The second thing is to honor the commitment, which is something that's very easy for me to do because I am committed and I do like goals and stuff. But with something like this, generally, if I figure out how to do it, I'm like, okay, done. Check. I can move on and learn the next thing. So commitment, like I want to be committed to this. And the third thing is, well, there's many reasons, but another thing is we'd love to help people who are experiencing issues in their business. So it's really broader than just design, but that's my wheelhouse. So I can start there with design and marketing because there's a lot of people in my shoes who are leaving careers, starting on their own, or they've joined a company and they don't necessarily know where to go or how to navigate. But certainly there's enough sole proprietors out there who need help, because marketing is a very wide category of things and everybody's always telling you what you have to do. So we're going to have those conversations. We're going to talk about business. We're going to talk about sales. We're going to talk about marketing. We're going to talk about branding. And, sometimes we're going to talk about life and the impact that all of that has on your life as a consumer. Because, as I mentioned earlier, branding is more than just the visual identity. It's really how you feel when you work with a company. And there's a lot of stuff that's tied into that. So I want to bring useful content to an audience that wants to learn and have a little bit of fun in a way that's authentic to me.
Sweet.
How's that?
Perfect.
We got to get the transcript on that one because that was pretty good.
No, you're good. So yeah, I feel like brands definitely have a lot to learn, from other people's mistakes. We've seen some brand cramps in the media. So I think there's definitely a lot to learn, which we will cover in the podcast.
Yeah.
So we will have a running crew, I will say, of people who will also bring their expertise to the BrandKramp festivities. We have Kevin Donovan from Fortis Sales Solutions.
Yes.
Aileen, what's his? He's the president, I believe, right?
It's his right. He calls himself a fractional VP of sales, but he's the owner of the company. But he actually comes in and he will reimagine your sales department, including everything from your strategy to your tools to your staff. So, and he's an all around good guy. So
cool, all around good guy, Kevin Donovan.
Yeah. Yep.
We'll have attorney Matthew Patterson from Optimal IP Strategies. He's an intellectual property attorney. And we'll have Michelle Marquis with Floyd Consulting, as well as
other friends of mine. And I'm starting off with friends because I have some awesome friends. And also, when you're doing something like this, it is super awkward. And to have my friends involved in the awkwardness is wonderful. And, my hope moving forward is as we move on and, folks listen and they engage, we'll have new topics, meet new people and things that we can do. And I can tell you, I have, I can give you sort of the background on the whole podcast, but my accountability partner, Kathleen, and I had our meeting this morning and she challenged me to create some podcasts on my own where I talk about branding, like mission, vision, values, those types of things. So I will start to do that so that I can learn how to do that. There are plenty of people who host podcasts on their own and can entertain and inform and do all the right things. But at this point, I'm like, no, I'm not sure I can. But hey, it's a journey. So
it is a journey. And I think that's the most important thing to acknowledge. It's not like, you spend a little bit making your brand and then you're done. It's like it's something you maintain.
So let's talk about sort of the journey that we're on. We talked about sort of my background and what I hope to get out of this. And one of the first blog posts that I wrote was sort of the background for this and getting out of corporate America, getting the stink, all that kind of junk. So I took a course. I took a personal branding course that Mark Schaefer, New York Times bestseller, offered at the end of January to February. It was a 4-week course with 10 students. You had to apply, which was kind of fun. And it was international. And it was based on his book, Known, which is a really good book if you're a marketer. And if you're someone who wants to become known. I didn't really realize it was based on his book, Known, until I got in, because it was talking, his whole thing was about developing your personal brand, which is sort of one of the goals that I have this year, is to figure out who I am and what I do. So it was based on his book, Known. And after or during the process, he said, you're going to have to stick your line, draw your line in the sand and figure out what the one thing is that's going to help you become known. And when you do that, you need to promise me that you commit to 18 months of doing it. So, the options were you could write a book, you could become a speaker, you could do a podcast, or you could be a blogger. So the two things that interested me were blog and podcast, but the one that made me more excited was the podcast. So I chose that. At the end of the session, he assigned us with an accountability partner, and that's Kathleen. So she and I are doing the same thing. She and I have made the commitment to meet once a month for 18 months. And we're just going to encourage each other to keep moving and keep learning. So that is how this started. So, in addition to creating content that's entertaining and informing, I want to share the process with people, and I want folks to see really what it takes to do what I'm doing and to be transparent about it. Because in the past 2 months now that I've been working on this, I've learned about technology. I've started things, I've stopped things, I'm challenging myself, I'm reading books, I'm learning, that kind of thing. So, this is a journey, and I'm going to share the journey.
Yeah. Cool.
So,
Were
yeah.
you so I believe that and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe BrandKramp was in its like sort of like nascent stages before that course. Would you say that that course kind of made it like made you think like, hey, this is something I for sure want to do, or was there some other sort of catalyzing event where you were like, this is something I genuinely want to do and like make happen?
So during the course, one of the things that Mark had us do was choose a sustainable interest, and everything was built off the sustainable interest. And what that is it's something you're passionate about that'll stand the test of time. And he had us take a deep dive in terms of what we offer. I don't know what the frick I offer. I offer help, and like you can't write a sustainable interest statement out of helping, or at least I can't. It's hard for me. So, we tried to launch BrandKramp about a year ago. We had the crew together talking about it, and I didn't even know where to begin. But from this course, I knew where to begin. So I said, you know what? I'm bringing BrandKramp back. I'm not going to worry about the purpose of the podcast to help people. I'm going to use the podcast as a way to learn, and then to share, and then to help. So yes. So it was back there. I took the course. I learned how to make it happen, and I'm making it happen. So
Cool. We love it. And I think it's also super cool that, you have these resources, Kevin, Michelle, and Matt, who have these unique perspectives and all generally can help provide a well-rounded perspective on branding and how companies can most efficiently, create and manage their brands. So that's real neat.
yeah, and not gonna lie, I mean, honestly, we can all work with each other and move mountains for companies. So there are synergies between what we do. I mean, Matt and I work together. I design logos, he trademarks them. Kevin and I haven't worked together yet, but we met each other at a networking group, and we do talk about sales and marketing. There are things that he does that I can bring to new clients, and there are things that I do that he can bring to clients also. And Michelle and I have been working together for probably 24 years. And, I've helped her with graphic design. She's helped me with recruitment, like, getting jobs and work. And this is going to all come together beautifully. I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure about that.
Absolutely. So you mentioned how, all of this is connected, sales and marketing and intellectual property and marketing and stuff like that. Have you ever come across a BrandKramp, either with your, either with AileenDesigns or in corporate America, where one department was kind of doing a different thing and it was hard to maybe keep up with and maybe resulted in a BrandKramp? Can you think of anything?
Always. The whole, my whole AileenDesigns is a BrandKramp because it wasn't me, so that's a huge BrandKramp. And then in corporate America, I've been on the branding side. There's a difference between brand marketing and sales marketing. Brand marketing is the visual identity. It is the feelings that the words and the images evoke. It's the sponsorships. It's the very hard to get the ROI kind of marketing stuff. It is your brand. It's the brand in your community. It's the name that's on the stadium. That's sort of what I consider brand marketing. Awareness is what it's all about. Sales marketing is different. It's about the call to action. It's about measurement. It is about pure ROI and the ability to move the needle. Having been on both sides, there is generally a huge brand cramp between the both. Huge. So, the sales department will get the logo pack and they'll be told use the logo the right way. And that's about all the guidance they're given. And here, they're the feet on the street selling the product or service that is now, a big logo on an entertainment center. And, there's no connection between the experience the customers are having with the brand. So yeah, huge brand cramps. And when a company does it right, woo, is when, I just had
What
my
was
white
that?
trash, but I look better. I do.
Oh my God, that
Yeah,
gave me a
that's
heart
pretty
attack.
cool. So you can tell when companies do it right. Like you look at something like Virgin Atlantic. I look at that logo and the dude who owns it, I love him. I've read a couple of his books. He just seems like a chill dude. Like, so it seems like things are connected. And I've flown on his airline years ago, obviously. And the people were nice and it was fun. And, they had little packets. I flew to Europe and you had ice cream and you had snacks and you had things to put on your eyes and little fans and stuff. That to me was all connected. There are other brands where you call customer service because there's a problem and the reps are mean, or they challenge you, or they tell you you're not right. Well, clearly there's a brand cramp there. There's something going on that's not connecting with the folks on the front lines. So yeah.
So, what would you say that airline did right? Like, I know you said that there was a lot. There was like a cohesiveness.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think they attained that cohesiveness?
Really good branding.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Consistent,
Okay.
through the whole organization. And I think it helps too that the owner, and I'm not even sure, Richard Branson, is that his name? I'm not even sure he owns all the elements of it, but he certainly built it. And I think it's because he's been involved,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because as I mentioned, generally when management changes, the brand changes. So, and there are
Mm-hmm.
some folks who understand branding and how it has to go down to the feet on the street level, and other people who feel branding is really just where your logo is featured. And they focus on the
Mm-hmm.
celebrity endorsements and the names on stadiums and those types of things, which really don't mean much if the feet on the street aren't preaching your brand. So, or don't know what your brand
Mm-hmm.
is. So, so let's
Mm-hmm.
switch it around to you, Miss Amina. We've been working together for like 2 years now. You have a degree in communications, right? So what do you think about
Indeed.
branding? You do social
I think,
media. So you're the feeling. So talk to me about that.
yeah, sure. So I think it's really funny because I think that definitely with the advent of more people being on the internet, and I definitely noticed this more, when COVID was in full swing, where, people couldn't go outside and they were more on the internet. And I noticed that a lot more people were paying attention to branding. And, there's even like changes in the language that people use these days. Like they, you know, reinvent themselves and they say it's a rebranding, like I go on Pinterest just for my own, personal, finding recipes, outfit ideas, stuff like that. And I see posts saying like, do you want to rebrand yourself? Here's some tips for rebranding yourself, you know? And I just thought it was like the strangest thing because it kind of envisions people as brands, but
Yes.
it's also kind of funny because I envision brands as people sometimes, or I think
Yeah.
it helps to definitely see them as that way. And yeah, I noticed definitely the brand is it creates like recognizability across every,
So
not
tell
just
me,
digital.
because you do social media for insurance, for intellectual property, for attorneys, for massage therapists, photographer. How do you approach their brand so that when you write copy and produce the visual imagery for them for social media, how do you approach their brand? How do you speak their voice?
So that's a good question. I feel like ultimately, it's such a wide variety of clientele. And I think really understanding what they're offering and who they're offering it to, and just the general, kind of message they want to give. I think once I have those, once I have a good understanding of all of those, the rest is just,
Well, how do you get that understanding?
I always like to have like really in-depth conversations with
Yeah,
clients
there you go.
just so I can
Yep.
pick their brains
Yeah.
and really understand what it is that they do and who they want to market to. And, sometimes that changes and you can also shift trajectories. Um, for example, the massage therapy practice that I do social media for, they recently hired a new therapist who does a lot of sports oriented things. And they were interested in incorporating a more kind of health oriented messaging to their branding. And up until then, I did have some health related campaigns going, but, they really wanted to stress the positive effects that massage can have on your body, a lot of which has been proven by science. And, some of their therapists work in conjunction with chiropractors. Um, any kind of muscle sports injury um, can be helped with massage therapists. And before that point, I did mostly like a spa kind of messaging, visual branding, scalp massages and cucumbers on the eyes, all that stuff. And then, once I found out that they wanted to change it, I was like, okay, so some of it looked a lot more, um, there was more like
Yeah.
medical
Yeah.
imagery, not injury. I was almost going to say
Exactly.
injury.
Yeah. And I think
um,
I think ultimately where I was going with that is you have to have a relationship with the person that you're working with. So, part of what we do at AileenDesigns is we don't take assignments and run with them. What
mhm,
we do is we engage with the folks that we're working with to make sure we're a good fit, because there are plenty of people out there who will take any work that comes their way. Um, but I don't want to be that kind of an agency. I want to make sure I understand the branding and the objective, and then we have conversations about it. And like I always say, it takes a good 3 months to really understand your tone, your message, and your visual identity, when we work with new people. And you and I spend a lot of time talking to our clients about stuff. And the first 3 months
mhm.
we're working with them, we're sharing our work so that they can edit it before we fly free. So, yes.
Yeah.
And I
And a
think
lot of it.
ultimately it makes it easier. And like to me, full disclosure, we work with Optimal IP Strategies, and it's incredible that you write posts for Matt that his colleagues say, well, that's a great idea, Matt, or that's a fantastic thought, Matt. I never thought about that. I'm like, Amina's writing content that IP attorneys are connecting with.
Wow.
you know?
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
especially with something as complex as intellectual property.
Yeah.
Like there's so much legal jargon and it can be really complex, and the challenge there is that if you try to summarize it, you know, the legal jargon is carefully worded for a reason,
Yes.
and so
Yeah.
if you try to summarize it in any way, you can end up losing a lot of vital information in
Or
translation.
or you put the attorney in the position of getting into trouble, for lack of a better word. I mean, we have to be
Exactly.
careful how we do that because there are things you can and you can't do. So, so yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So,
Yeah.
how do you like marketing?
I enjoy it a whole lot, especially because, there are so many different people and businesses out there, and they're all looking for they all want to stand out, and so there's a really fun problem solving element to it, and that's also personalized to that business. No two businesses are the same, but consumers don't always know that, and so it's our job to communicate that to people.
Yeah,
And I find I have a lot of fun with it. I find that sometimes, if something comes across as if my messaging for a brand comes off as like really redundant, I like to switch it up a little bit. Um, and of course, I don't like to do any of these things without um, approval, the okay from the client. Um, Ultimately, it is uh, their brand, and the close collaboration is also something that I really enjoy because it's
yes,
it's a conversation, and like I said, there's so many different people there. You'll never have the same experience with a single client.
right.
So I personally enjoy it a whole lot, and I assume that you do too, since you've been doing it for
Yeah,
longer than
I
I've
do.
been alive.
I love it. I know. It's true. It's
What
true.
are your favorite
It's
things?
true. So let's, bring it back to BrandKramp, and then we can bring this episode to a close. So what do you hope to get from BrandKramp?
So I really love the idea of, discussing brand cramps. Um, so that businesses can listen to our podcast and hear it from the perspective of sales experts, intellectual property experts, marketing experts, culture experts, and really be able to reflect on themselves and say, hey, we're kind of doing this thing. Maybe we shouldn't. And they'll see, how altering even a slight thing can benefit their business. And so I think that's really exciting. And I also find that, even when I listen in on these episodes, you know, Kevin, Michelle, Matt, Aileen, they all have, I listen to them speak and I learn things myself. There are tons of things that they just know in and out in their fields. And so I, as someone who relatively recently started out in marketing, even just like listening to them, I learned so much. And so I'm just excited to be a part of this journey.
And thanks for another edition of BrandKramp, Amina.
Thank you, Aileen.